Members, the ayes are 61, the noes are 59. Part 2 will stand part. We now come to Part 3. The question is that Part 3 stand part. This is debate on clauses 41 to 54 and schedules 7 to 9. I call the whistle wall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually will start where I almost ended my last contribution, and I want to focus again on the initial briefing to this Select Committee by the State Services Commission on the 15th of February 2012. So the last rationale for this bill was the disestablishment of the Charities Commission and transfer of functions to DIA was estimated to save the Crown $2.432 million over 4 years. And these costs didn't take into consideration the proposal for the 3-person independent board. But I guess I'd like to ask the Minister whether or not that is correct. If that is the biggest rationale for merging the Charities Commission into the Department of Internal Affairs, it would be interesting, given there seems to have been no evidence for this financial savings. And in fact, the group, Te Ora o Manukau, I know sent an email out and the Minister would have received it. But their assertion is that it's more likely that the integration of ICT systems, information and operational functions will result in additional costs and wastage of resources already invested in the Commission. So no work has been done to determine the savings over the long and medium term of keeping the Commission in place. So it would be wonderful if the Minister was able to provide some evidence about that. The other point that I want to highlight from the Te Ora o Manukau communication with me is that other countries have analysed the framework of the New Zealand Charities Commission with the intent to follow New Zealand's lead. So this is an area internationally that, you know, the way we do it here in Aotearoa is best practice. So it kind of doesn't make sense from our part of the world why the government is pursuing this. So we completely oppose Part 3 of this bill. We oppose the fact that the communities and the community and voluntary sector organisations in our country have been ignored. When the Select Committee process went through, it was very interesting to look at what the Select Committee actually said. So after they listened to the submitters, and of the 43 submissions, 20 were specifically related to Part 3 of the bill, 19 opposed, and this is what the Select Committee said. It did acknowledge the strong concern expressed by submitters in relation to the disestablishment of the Charities Commission. It did highlight that the process was interrupted with the end of Parliament, which further added to confusion about the status of the bill. So there would have been many more submissions and many more community and voluntary organisations that would have told the Select Committee exactly what they felt. So not all members of the Select Committee were convinced legislative safeguards in the bill would be sufficient to maintain the degree of independence the Charities Commission currently provides, and members also expressed concerns that some functions would be less accessible to the public and transparent when transferred to the Department of Internal Affairs. So that's what the Select Committee said with the government majority on that committee. What the Labour and Green members said, who were on that Select Committee, and I want to acknowledge the Honourable Ruth Dyson, who chairs that committee, is that a review of the Charities Act is due to take place following the current review of the Incorporated Societies Act 1908. So let the first principles review occur. So the Labour and Green members believe that the Charities Commission functions should not be transferred to the Department of Internal Affairs. No decisions on legislative or operational change should be made until the review of the Charities Act has been completed, and the independence and integrity of the Charities Commission cannot be retained if the functions are transferred to DIA. So we made some pretty clear statements about where we stood, and then it's been interesting as the spokesperson for the community and voluntary sector to talk to people in the sector about what they think about this part of the bill. And when I say the people of the sector, I'm talking about Angoa. I'm talking about Philanthropy New Zealand. I'm talking about social development partners. I'm talking about Bishops Action Foundation, J.R. Mackenzie Trust. Letters have also been written, I noted, by 2 international speakers that attended a Charities Commission conference. Lindsay Driscoll from the UK and Bob Wyatt from Canada. And what they did was, Mr. Chair.
The whistle will.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What they did was express concern at the impact of this move and the poor timing of it, considering the planned review of the Charities Act that has already begun and is due for completion in 2015. So the sector don't want this merger to happen. What the sector wants is for due process to take place, for their voices to matter, for this government to listen to them. And so my colleague, the Honourable Trevor Mallard, will be moving an amendment which defers the introduction of Part 3 for 3 years, because that's what the sector wants. So on this side of the House, we're very interested in listening to our stakeholders, listening to the people who are going to be most affected by this part of the bill. And, you know, the 4 big points that our community organisations have said was that the Charities Commission was established after over a decade of discussion between the voluntary and community sector and government, plus a detailed select committee process. So there was an understanding that there would be a review of the Act, which is actually going to happen. It's scheduled to be completed by 2015. So we don't understand if one of the clear rationale for this bill was to save money. If that isn't the case, why can't we just let due process occur? So that's the other challenge I have for the Minister, is can he please explain why we won't let due process take its course? Let's see what the best configuration of the Charities Commission might be. I mean, I can understand if this was going to save money, if this was going to be more efficient, if this was going to provide some added value to the sector. But if we don't know that, then how can we just rush this part of this process through, and within the context of the sector not having enough opportunity to have input, and particularly in the context of the sector overwhelmingly asking you to please let the review happen. So these questions I'd really appreciate if the Minister answered. And I'd also appreciate if those members of the House seriously consider the community and voluntary sector organisations in your communities. I mean, there are over 93,000 community and voluntary sector organisations in New Zealand, over 25,000 registered charities. So the sector is very clear about what it wants. So I just plead with you to please think about it, and I look forward to the Minister explaining particularly that part of the rationale for the bill. And we hope that actually tonight we have an opportunity to make sure that the voices of our community and voluntary sector, who are but one step away from the families and communities across Aotearoa who are they helping meet the needs of, have a say in the framework around how they do their jobs. Thank you.
Chair, I'm pleased to take a call on this third part.